Hello everyone, it's Sikamikanico here from XboxEra, and today we are joined by Chris Wallace and Adam Walters, developers at Liquidbit, who have just recently launched Killer Queen Black, a rather fantastic arcade game onto Xbox Game Pass. It's recently come out on Nintendo Switch, but they've taken some time out today to join us and chat with me about the development of the game, and also to take some questions from the community. Thank you guys, it's really awesome of you to join us like this. I appreciate it. How are you doing today?
Thank you. Good.
Really good. Really excited about the release.
Yeah. It hasn't been not too much is on fire. I guess I'll put it that way.
That is always good to hear. There's that day one server load worry, right? 20 odd million Game Pass subscribers floating around in there. You got to kind of be looking over your shoulder every now and then at the server racks. So, Chris, Adam, I mean, are you guys happy to just talk to me a little bit about what you do at Liquidbit and what your job role was with regards to the development of the game? Chris, do you want to go first?
Sure, yeah. So I'm a game designer. So basically I work on everything from like the UI flows to building levels and modifying existing levels to tuning, everything in between, all that kind of stuff. So I don't really touch the code that much. That's the one thing.
That sounds like it could be a good thing. You don't have to touch the code.
I'm a coder, so it's nice to not have to do that for once.
How do I get into your job?
What about you, Adam?
I'm Adam, CTO at Liquidbit. It's a small team and titles are titles, but largely working on all of the coding stuff, that he doesn't. So all the coding stuff, so whether matchmaking algorithms to matchmaker to actual gameplay and stuff. Yeah.
Fair. It's an interesting one. So I had seen Killer Queen mentioned way back, and it was mentioned in passing because as much as it pains to say, and I live very much near Southend in the UK, which is a big arcade place, Southend Beach, the Pleasure Beach and everything there, but I was never much of an arcade kid growing up. But I remember reading in passing, I think like in 2013, 2014, about Killer Queen, and for those that don't know, that are watching and wondering where this game popped up from, Killer Queen, as I understand it, was the original full arcade cabinet release of this game. So this was the first iteration of the original before Killer Queen Black came out. Where did that come from? How did that appear and get designed?
So I can speak to that. I actually started playing the arcade game in about 2015. But before that, it was actually a field game. So these two New York City game designers, Nick Mikros and Josh DeBonis, they had made a game called Killer Queen for a festival we have here called Come Out and Play. And it was running around with foam swords, and the queen has 3 crowns on her head, and there are plastic balls that you run around and put in buckets. And actually before the snail there was a bomb, which was one of the players. So it was a little bit different. But basically, they came up with that, and then a few years later, they got commissioned they made a digital version of it, and then they were commissioned for an art show to make an arcade cabinet. And then from there, it just took off, and people were like, oh, can I get one? And they were like, wait, what? And now you've got I think about 100 of them all over the country. Unfortunately, none internationally yet, but...
Yeah, I've definitely not seen it around Southend.
Yeah, I think the logistics of shipping and the financials of getting a shipping container full of them would have to be...
well, this is the interesting thing, because traditionally you think of an arcade cabinet and it's one giant machine, it might have some light guns on it or a bunch of buttons, but that's it. But Killer Queen is unique in that there are 2 of them, and one team takes the gold side, one team takes the blue, and it's, even if it's in an arcade, it's still 5v5.
It's a very large footprint. Mm-hmm. Yeah, each one is 5 players standing next to each other, so it's a lot of space to take up.
Wow. I mean, I've seen some pictures. When I was doing the review earlier this week, I was looking up the history of the game, and I saw a lot of pictures, and I really wanted to play it in that format because it looks and sounds fascinating. There's something charming, and I think something that's missed nowadays, especially with online play. local play for me, it's what I grew up with. I have very fond memories of system linking from one bedroom to my younger brother's bedroom, and it was 4 of his younger mates and 4 of my older mates, and we were like, But, that kind of thing doesn't happen anymore. And now there's this fine line, because I see in the industry now, lots of games get released with that passion for local play, but then they don't include the online play. And a really big game that I was reminded of when I played Killer Queen Black was IDARB. I'm not sure if either of you have played that from Other Ocean. Big fan, but it was online, but you had to have 4 people in your house to take in and do a 4v4. It didn't have that matchmaking component where you could all get in and play together, even if you're all on separate boxes. And I think that was probably an argument of budget and time, but that is a shame. And it's nice to see that Killer Queen Black supports, you can have 4 of your mates in all over the world versus another 4 of your mates all over the world, as well as supporting local play. And to my knowledge, it also supports 8 players locally, correct?
It does, yes.
Which is it's a feature that's been around since I think the Xbox One came out in 2013, but it's very underutilized because, well, not many people play local multiplayer games anymore, which is a shame.
Or it's hard to get 8 friends.
Who has 8 friends? Absolutely. Yeah. But what was some of the complexities of actually taking that original arcade experience? Because, like you said, it's a big footprint, it's 5v5, there's going to be shouting and hollering, and part of your passion, I suppose, if you're a big fan of Killer Queen, how do you morph that into something where you still get that buzz of victory and all the different styles of play, and not let the whole experience just fall over? Like, what was that challenge like of making those design decisions?
Actually, you hit it on the head as far as why it's 4v4 instead of 5v5. Part of it is the 8 controller limit is kind of a standard.
Yeah, it's the same on Switch, if memory serves.
Yeah. So that's kind of already that kind of forced our hand a little bit. But at the same time, in the arcade, you're standing in front, inches away from a 50-inch monitor, right? Yeah. So you can have a slightly larger map and smaller characters, and you don't lose much in doing that. Versus if you're sitting, 6 feet back from a TV that's the same size, it's you kind of want a little bit shrunken down scale of the map and slightly bigger characters just to make it easier. So that was part of it. Other than that, as far as the thing about the arcade, that's what got us into it. Is there's a place I'm in Chicago. That's where Liquidbit is from. But we went and played it at one of the barcades here called Logan Arcade, and it was just that the feeling of getting to play it the first time, and just we went with the first time with just a bunch of our friends, and it was kind of empty. But we've gone back and done their league nights and stuff, and it's a great it's a hard thing to try and bring to online, because there you can just have people hey, rounding up people, jump in and play.
You can point to someone at the bar, be like, "Hey, you, come here, ride the snail." And they're like, "What are you talking about?" And then 10 minutes later, they're like, the snail. Which
is one of the beautiful things about it. And it is hard to do, to emulate that online.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing we have right now is our Discord community. Is the biggest thing that makes it feel that way.
Yeah.
Right. It's just this great community aspect to it.
Well,
we have voice chat and all those things, but still, it's that's where I see it really shine, is the people in Discord. Just you get that feeling of new players come in, and they're like, "Come on, we'll show you how to play," giving tips, so it has manifested its way through Discord in that way for our community.
Yeah, it's interesting because when you first try a game of this style, you kind of get a feel for it, and you think you're doing good. Right, and I have very fond memories, back when I was much younger and had hair, I'm the best at, Halo, and then you log on Halo 2 the first time it goes online, and you get utterly destroyed, and you're like, I am no longer the best, and it's humbling.
Yeah.
And I had a similar thought, because Killer Queen Black has a really cool feature where you can spectate matches, right? And as I was going through the process of looking down and playing through it with friends, no one was online, and I kind of wanted to see some high-level gameplay. And I did a bit of Googling, but I wanted to see if I could get some direct capture. And it was great because I clicked Killer Queen Black TV, and it booted up a game, and I was watching, and I was like, oh, and then suddenly this whole door opened because I was watching these players using the shield to throw, the workers were throwing berries in to try and grab it. The guys were knocking the berries back out. There was a queen coming for the guy on the snail. He had a berry, and he bought himself a couple of seconds just to deflect her back by throwing it. My mind was kind of blown. And when you look at what happens out of an arcade, you've translated that experience across to Evolve V4. Is there a big burgeoning, do you feel, esports community behind this that goes beyond the arcade and might take this to Twitch, etc.?
Yeah, I mean, I hope so. Like, you see, the first step was we got involved with this league called the IGL, and the players really took that off, and it's basically a whole competitive league that people are really committed to and playing. Each week, each night, there's a bunch of competitive matches going on that you can watch, like the highest level gameplay. So
it's nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
So yeah, I mean, with the influx of new players that we hopefully will get with the Xbox release, hopefully that's only going to get even bigger.
Yeah, it's interesting that this came out on, I think it came out on Switch 2019. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yep.
It's October 2019. Yeah.
And it's the game currently now on Xbox is crossplay, right? So you can play against people on PC, you can play against people on Switch. Is that correct?
Yep. Yeah. So, it's always been like a mission of ours to like be crossplay from the get-go, allow everyone to play with everyone, especially in a game where you need 8 people to play.
Yeah, it's most appreciated.
We want the biggest pool possible.
Well, that's the thing, and I think more and more developers, and thankfully the bigger publishers now, are realizing, if we don't segregate our communities and we kind of let them all play our game all at once, our game succeeds. Whereas if we release on one platform, it might not. It's harder to fight for a voice. And it was great because, getting the early review code, I wasn't expecting many people to be on Xbox. But we got some great games in with people that were on PC or Switch or whatever the case may be. So what was it like actually working out how to implement that from a code perspective? Is it just a case of that, there are tools that are provided and you just sposh it all together? Because at the end of the day, once you strip back all these console layers, it's just machines talking to each other, right? It's the same as any multiplayer server. So it's never been as tricky to implement as perhaps people used to think.
Yeah, I mean, we really tried hard to, like I said, that was always like in the forefront of our mind. Like, we want it to behave this way, so that was like using our own netcode implementation, things like that. Not trying to rely too heavily on platform-specific things. I mean, Xbox Live is great like for the social stuff, but also because that was also one of the little challenges we had is we had built a cross-platform friend system beforehand. So like that you could add, using a Liquid ID, which is an ID we made, like you could become friends across systems, like between Switch and PC. But Xbox has all that stuff as well. Like they have this really awesome, join someone's game, invite someone through that. So there was a challenge in marrying those two, but we just always tried to keep that in mind, that never like shoehorn yourself, into a spot that you can't get out of. There's challenges, of course, but we just always kept that in mind, like when we were doing it. Like sure. that was the most important thing to us, is just making sure that all these people going to the same matchmaker can become friends with each other, party up together. Everything like that.
Yeah, I love the rematch option, because sometimes you have a really good one and you want to like, I've got a full team, these guys are fun to play against, and you can continue that competitive streak. The game has a rank system, but what I noticed was even in casual play, things can get pretty intense. Is there, a lot of ranked systems, effectively the unranked platform has the same under the hood mechanisms, right? It's just perhaps a little looser. Is that what's happening here, or is unranked truly completely social and you get what you get and you might get stomped every now and then? Or is there a little bit more nuance behind the scenes underneath?
Yeah, I guess we don't use like MMR or anything like that, like when we're doing it. And I think one of the best parts, depending on how many people are in the pool, like the matchmaker pool, one of the nice things about quick play is you can backfill into it.
Yes,
right? So like you might start and it's a 2-on-2 game and you have 4 bots.
Yeah. But
like over time, like, a lot of times before like that match even ends, you're up to 7 people, maybe you get a full 8. So like that aspect's nice, but it's hard to do that with something like ranked. Which is why like the community they have like set times that they really try to focus, like everyone go into ranked and play right now.
Wow.
Which again, like it helps just because otherwise, we can't start a ranked game until you have 8 people playing. So you could just sit there just waiting for a ranked game. And so it's nice that like we have these organized times and hopefully we have, gets to a point we don't need that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting you mentioned the bots because that was a genuine surprise. I'm also annoyed that they occasionally beat me because most of the time you view bots as, it's just a bot, I can outwit this thing. Oh, it's snuck up. How easy was it to implement that? Because there's been plenty of indie games that have been multiplayer, but sometimes the bots are pretty lacking, but I've been moderately impressed. I have a bit of a grudge, actually. I can't remember the name of one of the ones that kept killing me.
Was it Peanut Butter?
It was Peanut Butter, yes. Peanut Butter was Queen on one of the matches, and I was like... Because it's not just if they've got bot in their name that they're bot, right? I think there's a few variations on that. There's AI is one of the other acronym in there, or abbreviations, I should say.
And AD-AM, which is me, but like an AT-AT.
Okay. I'll keep an eye out. If I ever come up against him, I'll know Is he based off of your gameplay style?
No, not at all.
Just recorded a few special moves. Wouldn't put it past you. The other thing about the game as well is because it's come down from 5v5, Killer Queen was supremely popular. You've had to then not only make the player characters a bit larger, but your level design has obviously presumably had to change as well. So you've got these probably adored and fan favourite spaces from the arcade version. Have they all successfully made the transition and just had some tweaks to allow, or is this all brand new play spaces to accommodate 4v4?
All completely brand new because the form factor is essentially completely different, right? So the closest one, we have a map called the Pod, and that one is not exactly, but it's feeling the same as Day Map, which is the first map you have in the arcade game. But actually, all the original maps that were designed by Josh, they're really, really diverse and unique, and really, I think, play more to the strengths of Killer Queen Black, because there's a lot more different things that can happen, especially with the Queen having a side dive that she doesn't have in the arcade version, the different weapons, being able to throw berries. So all of these things are just completely new considerations that you have to think about when you're designing the maps. And we've gone back and made a few changes based on the community feedback and based on how we're seeing the gameplay on some of the original maps, and in the process of releasing more. So that was something I read, that there was a hope and a desire to produce some more maps, play around with some of the custom match configurations to allow people to kind of create some sort of gargantuan marathon match where it's like you got 12 lives for the Queen and 1,000. I don't know. You got like different levels of berries and things like that to collect. I have no idea. The possibilities are endless, I suppose. Is it the case that, and this is probably a personal question, this is now your version of something that you loved, right? If you had to pick one that you'd want to play, if you had to take one version, Killer Queen or Killer Queen Black to an Island, which would it take? It's really different because both the gameplay is so different. Like, I've played a game of Killer Queen Arcade in a competitive tournament that was 25 minutes long.
Wow.
And that, you don't have that in Killer Queen Black.
Wow.
You don't have an arcade as much anymore. That makes it. But it's just a completely different feeling of standing side by side with your friends, whether it's a competitive situation at a big tournament or you're just, casually at a bar some night,
very true.
Drinking, and that feeling versus playing online with people, I don't think you can compare them. I think I might be better at Killer Queen Black than I am at arcade. I'm not good at
you got to play test it a lot.
I'm probably mid-tier at arcade, but I think the twitchy, it's much more reactive and it's fast, and I think that plays to my strengths a little bit more, whereas like the arcade is very about, not that Black isn't, but it's about positioning and being very precise and super strategic. So I think the fast pace plays to my personal strengths more, but I don't I'm not that good at Killer Queen Black either, though, compared to
I'm equally bad at both.
But it's
I mean, like what Chris saying though, it's like the experience of playing with people is just like so different. Like you can still get that like with the community and Discord and stuff. It's just a different form of it. The one thing for me that's really hard with arcade is I don't have the tap mechanics. Like,
that is a skill, right? Unless you were into arcades, the tap mechanic is something that...
and people have different forms, like 2 fingers or sliding.
That's been reduced too. So just to give people a little background, the way Killer Queen Arcade works is you kill people by hitting them from above or behind, just like the old arcade game Joust. So the safest place to be is with your head on the ceiling. When the game first came out, you had to tap the one button at least 10 times a second to be able to crown scrape. And a lot of people couldn't do it. And Nick and Josh were like, well, we don't want this game to be about what your physical skill at tapping a button is. So that got dropped in one of the later updates to be about, I think it's about 6 per second now. So I wasn't able to crown scrape before that, but then, now I can. So I really appreciated that as, just a conceptual design change. But that's not as important in Killer Queen Black because you have, lasers and dashes coming from the side and things like that. So it's a different beast.
The fact that you can nip up, and again, that was another moment where I was like, oh, I didn't know I could do that. You could nip up through the top of the map and come out the bottom, very Pac-Man style. I saw one very, very cool move where someone was using a shield to prevent someone from passing and was blocking, and the laser guy shot I think around through that side, and it came through and got him in the... I was smart move. Smart move.
The gun and the shield are a lot of fun to just mess around with and do silly stuff with. Like,
it must have been great fun to iterate with.
Yeah, I mean, I actually joined the team a little bit after all the initial mechanics were developed. So I wasn't there for the first batch of it, but since then we've made like a few minor changes. But it's really, really fun to see what people come up with, especially when people are just playing for fun and quick play and just messing around. People really mess around a lot with those, and it's really fun.
You can mess around and like also discover a viable strat.
Right. It's like, oh, I'm just messing around with the shield, but this is actually kind of working.
we came up with a few strats like straight away. We were like, okay, if we have one guy always trying to defend the guy on the snail, we'll have one guy constantly harvesting just in case. And the queen kind of just hovers between the two, captures the gates and stuff so that you can pivot. That in those initial matches worked pretty well for us, but we did come up at one point against one team that just they locked down those gates, and once they had them, they were relentless on the queen. It was pure military. It was hard to push back. It's going to be interesting seeing our skills develop. There's already been conversations when lockdown ends, we have a big get together again. I'm already thinking, get someone else to bring a big screen TV down, or bring everyone's pads and we'll sit round and do that at the barbecue, because it's one of those games that has that really great social hilarity. The snail and all the silly things that can go on. Now, before I dive into our community questions, because we have some members of the community who've put some stuff forward, I wanted to quickly mention, where did the snail come? What is the snail god? Explain this to me. The inspiration in this game.
The snail came from the original digital prototype, was a vertical form factor. So like if you take a TV and turn it sideways, that was the original digital prototype, was designed for that. And there weren't goals, but you had to bring it to the hive. So Nick and Josh had to think, well, what's something you can bring slowly but also horizontally and vertically? So that's where the bomb became a snail from that. It was solving a design problem. Yeah.
I really want to be in that meeting, guys. I've got it. I've got it. It's a snail. But it works. It works, and I think it adds to the charm of the game.
Definitely. Oh yeah. I mean, that's the main.
It did have us cracking up many, many times, and the animation. Whoever animated the snail eating the guy as he's desperately trying to crawl out, and the little spit that comes out after the snail's done.
Oh, yeah.
Chef's kiss. It was great. Now, I've got a bunch of questions from the community here. Appreciate you might not be able to answer all of them. There's not too many, so we'll go through these before I let you guys go.
Sure.
Some of them are silly, some of them are getting into the technical here, so I'll try not to be too boring with them. The first one from Don Cabasa, one of the team at XboxEra, funnily enough, he's asked what the actual process was for launching into Game Pass with Microsoft Like. So he and as I said, they're not going to tell you how much Microsoft might have given them or what deal you got straight to. Anyone watching can forget that part. But overall, how was it, working with Microsoft to bring Killer Queen Black to Xbox?
I mean, overall, it was great. Like the biggest challenges that I think we ran into, like I was saying before, is we had this party system that kind of mirrored it. Like it was almost there. Like
is this the Nintendo where it worked with Nintendo before? Is that what you were talking about, matching the Nintendo version to?
Well, and all of that is like built in house, so it could be the cross-platform, like and so forth. But like, I can't remember which update it was, but we added things like instead of the original like version of it was. You had to send an invite to someone, then they could join. They'd have to accept it to join. Then we added things like privacy settings, so you could be like, anyone can join my game. And doing the same thing for like custom match, where it's like, if you're friends with me, you can join. Things like that.
Yeah.
So like that very much mirrors what Microsoft Xbox Live has, right? Like there's an invite and a join button, and you can like control those things. So like figuring out how to like get those in parity with each other was definitely a challenge, because it's like, how do we work with what Microsoft does, but then end up hooking it into our system we already have built?
Yeah, because you don't want to throw out all the work, considering that people are used to it, such as...
Exactly, and we had all these like, validations and rules around these things. So it's like, we just needed to like get the foot in the door, and then we can still run our same logic. So I mean that was challenging. I mean, we had several failures going through cert, but in all honesty, as frustrating, because like I did a large part of the port.
Yeah.
Like we had used a third-party company called Puny Human to build the original part, but we were still developing new features. So it's like, it kind of became stagnant, and it was like, oh, we got to bring all these these other features back in. And, due to like the pandemic and whatnot, we only have 3 dev kits, and it's like, I kind of, so it kind of all fell, I took up the brunt of that part of the work while Mike and Matt and Ever and Bryce worked on other things. So it was stressful. It was very stressful.
I can imagine.
Yeah. But in the end, I mean, even though we failed a few times, like Microsoft's cert team just like, they made the game better. Like, right? Like finding all these things and like, it's like, oh, we failed again. Yeah, but this does make it a better experience.
Better now than on day one, coming out, and then you've got your players' first impression. Yeah,
exactly.
It makes sense. It makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have a QA department, so like it helps. It's like we, as the devs, do our QA. So it was nice to have them like basically QAing for us and like, pointing us in the right direction.
If it works. I mean, I have to admit, I played a lot of video games. I'm a big fan of all sorts. I don't play, just your big blockbusters. I have a particular, I guess, fascination for smaller indie developed titles, particularly because more often than not they are unique and they're usually works of passion, and they usually don't handhold as much. It was nice to find a tutorial in here, which is unusual in today's world of this is super hyper competitive game. Get good. It was a little bit eased me in gently and just helped me understand the mechanics.
It's such a different kind of game that most people have never seen this kind of gameplay before, where there's like 3 win conditions. It's not just killing the other team. How do you even get a weapon? How do you do the other win conditions? What the hell is the snail? So that was actually the first thing I did when I joined the team. So I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's great. I did have a piece of feedback from one of my guys. He mentioned he would love to see that expanded into challenges, and I can't remember what game he likened it to. Like where it's like an RTS where you've got 2 units and you've got to come up with the way to do the thing. Sure. He was like, that would be, and I was like, yeah, come on, dude, you just play a few games, you'll get the hang of it.
Even if you go back to the original Super Smash Brothers, like the break the targets. I mean, we've been thinking about that kind of stuff for so long, and it's just we have a very large backlog of things.
Well, I guess the hope is now you've launched into Game Pass. Today, as of this recording, I think it came online in a few countries late last night. But there's a lot of people there, not just on Game Pass, but just in general in that market. And I have to admit, the games I've managed to get in today, between work and child parenting, etc., games, the search time before was 45, 60 seconds. It was like less than 20. Now, boom, straight into a game. And you mentioned, Adam, that you were doing a lot of the grunt work to get it ported over. One of the biggest compliments I can probably give is that the gameplay feels flawless. Like, it is snappy, it's responsive. You don't feel like you're lagging. Your controller's not doing what you want it to do. So you've done a great job from my perspective. At least
it was a team effort. I mean, I just had to do a lot of the testing on the Xbox since I'm the only one that had the dev kits. But
you lucky devil.
No, but it's like that's been refinement over 3 or 4 years of development, and since it's launched with feedback. So that's a team effort from everyone.
Another one of the questions I have here from Vinny13 was the game always going to be that pixel art style? Because the original was of that arcade genre, but there's some custom artwork which obviously I think I've got a bit up on the screen now of the Queen with the sword, and I think the really cool intro cartoon movie was obviously a little bit more stylized. Was it always that desire to stick with that, and homage the original in the pixel art style?
Yeah, that was always the plan. Yeah, we're all of the age that we liked, NES and SNES quite a bit. And that's one way I guess we've always kind of referred to, like, the difference in style is, if you think of Killer Queen Arcade, that's kind of like 8-bit.
Yeah.
This is a bit more 16-bit.
Yeah. A little bit more detail.
Our artist, Blake Reynolds, is just incredible. I mean, I don't know how he makes pixel art look that good.
I know,
yeah, exactly.
I know. It's really, really good, and with so much character in it as well, like the little movements and the breathing of the creatures. I've mentioned the snail eating the guys. That's often one that makes me chuckle. I've got another question here as well from Jamie ODST. He's thinking ahead a bit here. Any plans for a sequel, or are you thinking of starting something new?
Yeah, not sure. That's a hard one to answer. We're gonna keep working and supporting, Killer Queen Black. Whether we would make a new version of that or something new, it's a little bit up in the air.
That's fair. I think that it's only been a day on Xbox. Let's see how it fares.
Yeah, exactly. This could change like in the next hour.
Yeah, I'm sure it will be fine. I think some people they look at pixelized style graphics and they it has that label, right, indie, and there are people that roll their eyes at that. But I personally think that pixel art is timeless. Like, you can never, unless someone's doing a really bad job, ever make an ugly pixel art game, like, really, because they've always got their little cute quirks. And gameplay is king, and there's gameplay is here on this one. I've got another question here from NRXic. It touches a little bit on the 8-player control support. Unique to Switch and Xbox when it comes to consoles, and a unique feature for a game to have in general. How difficult was it to actually test an 8-player mode on console for game balance, arena size, and so on? So that's part one of his question. That's a pretty good one. That, I can imagine if you've only got 3 dev kits, how are you testing?
Yeah, no, we have a standing rule. We're never ever going to build a game where it takes more people to test than work at the company.
Wow.
Because it's hard. That's for sure. A lot of times it's like, because it's one of the perks of it being cross-platform is like, we built tools so we can fire up like 4 PC builds that use different accounts. So I'm jumping around, like clicking on things just to like, register this person as queen or whatever, to go into the matchmaker. But that's something that the community and doing, like with Chris and other game designers who, we started Liquidbit as a bunch of engineers. We don't think about things like playtesting very much.
Yeah.
But that is hugely beneficial, because it turns out when you're a single person trying to manage 8 clients, doesn't really reflect actual gameplay that well.
Very true.
So like having like playtests like that like has been hugely helpful. But.
Yeah, the beta we had before the release especially was really huge, that we ran through Discord, and just talking about challenge of 8 players too, just showing it at events, like whether it was like E3 or smaller regional stuff, just setting up the system with 8 controllers for random people to come up all day and like, which one's the queen?
I can imagine that's a tricky thing to pull off. He's asked a second part to this one, and again it might make your eyes roll, because he's a developer from memory. He worked on a really cool little indie game on the creator store on Xbox, which is called Omega Rally Championship. Has a really cool driving model if you're into that kind of thing. He's put also porting a local multiplayer game that requires precision timing, supporting online play, must have had its challenges as well, but necessary for possible esports adoption. Whilst it's hard to predict which games will catch on in an esports world, is this something that was constantly in the back of your minds?
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, there's a lot there. It's part of what we always loved about it. And, when we were playing the arcade, we started, and before we even started working with Nick and Josh, it's like we would see what league nights and, the tournaments that are held throughout the country, when we were in lockdown. That we saw that there was something there, like, and we could feel it when we played. Like, this is a competitive game.
Yeah.
So like, it's at the core of it for sure. The precision part of it and like doing that's part of the reason we have weapons, whereas arcade is very height and contact based. Right?
Okay.
Is that it's hard to do contact based accurate netcode, stuff like that. You get a little flexibility from like having a trigger to attack. It's not like a first person shooter where you can revert to like the kill cam that you see in part of the kill cam is to get around that's like you can show someone from their viewpoint, from the person who killed you's viewpoint, and you're like, oh, okay, it looked good on their screen. So that's why I died. You can't do that when everyone's looking at the same screen. It gets you get put under a microscope a bit more there.
It reminds me a little bit of I think that one of the challenges of bringing fighting games like Street Fighter or Killer Instinct online was those are intensely competitive games for those that are really into them, where every frame counts. I think the best, to my knowledge, even to this day, and it's a shame it came out on the Xbox One, which was a little bit less well received than most of previous consoles, was Killer Instinct. I think it had really, really good rollback netcode compared to even games being released today that don't nail it. If you don't nail it, well, your fighting community isn't going to join playing online, and it's then relegated to in-person events, I suppose. So yeah, I bet that's a challenge to get right. But I think from everything I've played, it feels really good. So you guys have done the job. Another question here from Delroy: is there a good resource for tips, tricks, and a new player to get up and running and have fun? I think this is the point where you can plug your Discord, guys.
Absolutely. The Discord, like Adam was saying before, people are so friendly, so welcoming. We want to see more players. We want to see the community grow, and the community's also made a wiki. So if you go to killerqueenblack.wiki, there are like in-depth guides to each map and where the berry throws are and like how to do the lineups and this and that, and it's just so in-depth. So definitely join the Discord, kqbdiscord.com, and check out killerqueenblack.wiki.
Yeah, I will stick links to those.
These are insanely detailed drafts.
Well, I already I did a bit of Googling, right, because I saw a move made, and I think I actually put it in my video review for XboxEra, where both teams were verging on that economic win. We had the shield guy and the sword guy pushing these berries out, and one made it through, and this guy caught it, the worker caught it from below, bounced it off a wall, and it just pinged off and in the hole, and it won. And I was just like...
Yeah.
While everything was going on around him, it was a bit of a mind-blowing moment.
The competitive community, I mean, I'm amazed to see the highest level players, like they memorize all the angles and all the positions they need to be to exactly get each bounce. And like you can see speed runs. This part of the custom modes, people jump in and they'll do like speed runs of getting all the berries in.
Wow.
And it'll be like 16 seconds to get all the berries in on a map, and it's insane. It's insane.
I'm never going to be able to compete. Maybe I'll hope for a lower rank. I don't know.
Yeah, I gave up a long time ago.
I'm bronze.
Well, I'm looking. I plan on getting placed and seeing what my rank is. I'll have to let you guys know. The last question I've got here from Harmonica is, and appreciate. I think there's an ETA on these, but I'll ask it anyway. When are the new maps coming?
I think Q2 is the current plan. So we've released one completely new map since release, which was the Nesting Flats.
Yeah.
And there's another one in the pipeline that's for Q2, and then there might be more that I'm working on right now. We'll see.
Well, there you go. I think that's good to know. I mean, I think it launches with 7 maps if memory serves at the moment.
Launch was 6. So there was one update that we released, the Nesting Flats. That was the new one.
Excellent.
And so
good
more
to
to come.
hear. And the only other thing I remember reading, and you guys will have to correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm now totally ad-libbing, my notes have finished. I remember seeing a kickstart for a single-player platformer based on the character of Killer Queen.
Yeah, so that's something that Nick and Josh and Bumblebear are working on right now. It's called the Abs versus the Blood Queen. And if you think about, they're an arcade game company.
Yep.
It's been a tough year for arcades, so they said, okay, well, let's take the engine of Killer Queen and make a single-player endless runner experience.
Awesome.
And I've been playing that a little bit over the last year, and it's super fun. It's super fun.
Okay.
So yeah, definitely check it out. It's called Abs vs. the Blood Queen. Yeah, I haven't actually checked it out in like at least a month, maybe.
Well,
so.
You've been busy. There's been some things going on in your life. It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah.
Well, look, guys, I really appreciate you taking the time out to chat to me today about the game. Congratulations on the launch. I'm looking forward to getting some more games in. I think one of the members of the XboxEra team is hoping to do a community live stream tonight. He's going in blind, so I cannot account for his skill yet, but I'm hoping to see the community really pick it up, and I hope it succeeds for you guys on Xbox, and you get to see lots and lots of people playing.
Yeah, well, thank you for taking the time to do this. Really appreciate it.
Not a problem. Absolute pleasure. As always, for those watching, if you enjoy what we do and you want to support us further, you can check out our links to our Patreon and everything else below. For now, stay tuned to XboxEra for more, and we'll see you next time. Thank you very much, Adam and Chris.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.